Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Animal-Based Dad podcast. This is the show where between my guest interviews with subject matter experts and topic-specific deep dives, the aim is to arm you with actionable insights and information on how to prioritize your metabolic health and improve your overall health and well-being. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Animal-Based Dad podcast. I'm your host, Ricky Plessis, and I've got a very special guest with me for what is the inaugural publication of this podcast, Mr. Martin Gillespie. Welcome to the podcast, sir.
Ricky, it's always a pleasure to chat with you, but I'm so looking forward and so privileged to be your first guest on what will be an amazing journey.
Thank you, Martin. For our viewers, can you give us just a short synopsis, a short overview of yourself and what you're doing in the metabolic health space?
Of course. Ricky, I'm a leader in metabolic health. And what I mean by that is I help people perform well, but ultimately well in their greatest asset in life, and that's their health. I provide them with the tools to prevent modern illnesses such as Alzheimer's, cancer, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular.
We're talking chronic disease there, yeah?
Chronic disease. You cannot perform on a daily basis without looking after your health.
100%. I agree. So, Martin, you did me the very good kindness of having me on your podcast. You're a fellow podcast host, and you've had tremendous success with yours recently, having published your 50th episode. So congratulations on that. And
thank you.
You're someone I've come to admire a lot in the metabolic health space for the work that you're doing and raising awareness there. But with the rare chance of having you in the hot seat now, I want to ask you two things. So firstly, what specifically does metabolic health mean to you? And then secondly, what are you doing today to look after your own? This episode is brought to you thanks to my work as a Zinzino independent partner. To find out more about Zinzino's product offering within test-based personalized nutrition, or to find out about how to join as an independent partner yourself and build a revenue stream in helping others take the guesswork out of their personal health journeys, please stay tuned because I'll be sharing information later in this episode.
Great questions, Ricky. And let me take the first one. Metabolic health means looking after what we eat, our gut health, our brain chemistry, our mindset, and our self-love.
Okay. Yeah, good.
And what have I done today? Well, I knew that I was coming onto this show. So to prepare for this show, I was in bed around 10 o'clock last night.
Cool.
I wanted to ensure that I had a good sleep because I value your time and I value my time. And then when I woke up this morning, got up, got the running shoes on, and I ran 5.5 miles, which is about 9 kilometers in kilometer distance.
The confession, I don't run unless I'm being chased by something I cannot fight.
I'm not going to fight you. I know the size of you, Ricky. So I think that this is a difference in body composition. So I think we work to our strengths.
Yeah, I'll swim, but running doesn't agree with me. I don't enjoy it. No, good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, so you've gone for a long run this morning. How did you feel after that run?
So one of the things that for almost 40 years, running has been my meditation.
Okay.
That's what I use it for. I use it for thinking. I use it for clarity of mind. But also over the years, I've been able to reframe it in many ways. You cannot run unless you do one of the quintessential things properly, and that's breathe.
That's a very good point. So why is breath work so important?
So breath work is so important. So if we're not breathing, we're not living.
Okay.
The ability to breathe, to utilize all our cells in our body, to flow our blood in order to make our cells work, we have to breathe properly. And as we've grown from childhood to adulthood, we actually don't breathe properly.
Can you describe what breathe properly, what specifically you mean by that?
So we have a nose, we have a mouth.
Mhm.
We should be breathing in and out through our noses.
Okay.
We're very mouth orientated breathers. That has a massive impact on your metabolic well-being.
Yeah, good. So I'm a bit familiar with this, but for the benefit of our audience, I know that you want to keep your mouth closed and your tongue pressed against the roof of your palate. Can you explain why that's important?
So, why that's important, if you can visualize what happens behind the scenes, you're opening that pathway of air being able to go up through your nose and directly through your body
Okay.
in a more symmetrical and energizing way. When you take it through your mouth, it obviously contains all the aspects of what you've eaten. It's got to go through your teeth, it's got to go through your gums before it hits your tonsils and then down your throat. By
Okay.
taking it through your mouth, your nose, you're allowing the air to flow directly into your bloodstream.
Okay. Cool. That's good. Now, obviously, as you're running, that becomes more and more difficult to do, and that might be part of why I don't enjoy running. but but certainly, I remember I did a lot of running in junior school and in early high school. I used to be very good at long distance running when I was still very, very small and skinny. Um, and our coach, Riley, I think was her name, this is many years ago, but she used to teach us to double inhale through our nose, like, and then a double exhale through the mouth. And you'd get almost into this rhythmical pattern as you'd run, and you'd focus on that and the breath work rather than that little sort of voice in the back of your head going, "This is dumb. This sucks. Why are you doing this? Stop it. This is uncomfortable." Yeah.
Well, it's funny because one of the key things when I explain to people that I go out running, but I can also talk. So if I'm out with some mates and we're busy chatting away, etc., and then we look at the the speed that we've ran, and people go, "How can you talk while you're running?" But it actually relaxes your body as you get into that flow. And I think it's a little bit like, I know that you love going to the gym, and if that's something that people enjoy, that's fantastic. You find your own passion, because a lot of people think running, oh, you always have to run really fast. No, you don't. In order to maximize the strength of your body, learn to run slowly.
Okay. Seems counterintuitive. Could you explain that a bit?
Of course. So as you're running slowly, you're actually working your body, in particular your heart rate, really well.
Okay.
When you're expanding and running fast, you almost putting your body into that fight and flight mode. You're
Mm.
anxious to get to the finish line. You're putting stress onto your body, so you won't enjoy it. You're also bringing your muscles, putting attention into your muscles.
Mhm.
When you relax, you're relaxing your heart rate. And one of the things that I get excited about when I go for a long run is I wear a device, and I look at what my average heart rate has been.
Cool. Yeah, I train the same. I've got a heart rate monitor.
So I recently did a half marathon, which is what, 21 kilometers, 13 miles.
Yeah,
And my average heart rate on that time was 135 beats per minute.
it's not bad going. Yeah, I mean, that's high. That's what, zone three or four?
Zone three. Zone,
Three?
zone
Yeah.
three. So you've got to remember, I'm 54. I'm not 25.
Neither
You've
am
got
I.
to put into those factors what works, what can work well for you,
Mm.
but also what feels right, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you asked me a brilliant question at the start of this. What does metabolic health mean to you? Metabolic health also means feeling right. One key thing that I advocate hugely with clients, if you wake up in the morning and if running is your passion or gym is your passion, you wake up and you go, I don't feel it today. Don't force it.
Okay. Yeah.
Listen to that gut intuition. There could be something happening in your body. So maybe replacing that with something like reading, meditation, journaling.
Mm.
Take your monkey mind on to do something else.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. I remember when we first spoke on your podcast last year, um, I was describing what metabolic health meant to me, and I started talking about quality of life. And the way I've come to view metabolic health is it's our health at the individual cell level, making sure that all the little functions and processes are happening at the level of the individual cells, because upon that, your bodily organs and systems, so on and so forth, the whole cascade of what is you is built upon that. And I've come to prioritize it in my life as one of the very most important things, because my quality of life is directly built upon the quality of my metabolic health. And so I incorporate different things other than just my exercise. I do calisthenics based exercise to look after my movement and function, but I do different things as well, because metabolic health has many different triggers and modulators. So we've spoken about your running. What other things do you incorporate as part of your lifestyle?
That's a great segue, Ricky. So I'm a yogi.
Okay,
I've
cool.
been practicing yoga now for about just close on 15 years.
Nice.
And it's something that I found extremely therapeutic. All you need is a yoga mat. That's
Yeah,
all the space you have.
cool.
And I've done it collectively with a group of people. I've done it individually, and you can be in the zone. But what I've found extremely beneficial is that it centers you.
You're talking about the mind aspect of
Talking
it.
about the mind. And believe it or not, I said when I run, I wear a device. When I sleep, I sometimes wear it as well. When I do yoga, I don't wear it.
Okay, that's interesting. Why not?
I want to be more present. The mat allows me to feel more present.
Okay.
Now that works for me. I know that a lot of people might have it on because they want to, examine how they're doing, etc. But what works for me is almost being, dare I say, naked on the mat. And I don't mean it metaphorically. I do wear clothes when I'm on the mat, but feeling at one with myself. And I think that that's really important, that it grounds me.
Hmm.
And, I can do it. I love doing it in a collective space where the energy of others also help push you along a little bit as well,
Okay.
which is great. And it's something where, it's helped me through so many different emotions, from tragedy to illness to joy to actually just being able to feel. And also, as a runner, well, your hamstring takes a pounding. So it's a great way to
Hmm.
protect your hamstrings.
Yeah. You mentioned an interesting dichotomy there, because you were speaking about how yoga is a central mindful practice as you use it, but then also doing it in a group setting helps you sort of feel motivated and move along. Could you explain that a little bit? Because it almost seems counterintuitive that it would be mindful, but also group orientated.
Sure. So what I found, and bearing in mind this is my perception of it, what I found when I go to a yoga studio and you get prepared and you've got your neighbor next to you and you might say hello to them, etc. The joy of their energy helping you, you might not get into a pose that well, but you kind of, that little competitiveness sort of creeps into you going, they can do it, we can do it. And then you can also have a little bit of fun. I'll give you an example. When I lived in Sydney, I used to practice a lot in this wonderful studio. And there was a group of us that used to congregate in the bottom right hand corner. And we used to call it the sweary corner, because the teacher would suggest some poses, and some of the language that we would say, regardless of our nationality or accent, you could just imagine what it was like.
Yes, no, okay, I can well imagine.
So the collectiveness of yoga is brilliant. And you can bring in joy, you can bring in laughter. But the other key thing is that I mentioned the competitiveness, but it's also knowing when to stop. And one of the beauties I find about yoga in a studio, And I would say the majority of teachers are very, very good at this, explaining that if you go into a pose or if you want to do something and it's not working for you, lie in the pose you feel relaxed in for a few minutes to get your breath back.
Okay.
And we
Nice.
spoke earlier about the power of breathing. Getting your breath back in any type of physical exercise is so important.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I do calisthenics based training, and I've got a funny story that'll go with that, and we'll get into that in a minute. But I've got a friend who comes and trains with me now. He's actually the chef at the health club, and he sort of threatened for a long time to come and train, and now he does. But I group my exercises into supersets. So I'll do a pull exercise, a push exercise, and a core exercise if we're doing an upper body day. We did that yesterday together. And so we'll do pull-ups, supersetted with push-ups, supersetted with some form of core exercise, leg raises, body hollows, something like that. And we'll do them all bang, 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 one after the other with no rest. And then immediately go into a 2-minute rest where you just sit, and I sit and I won't talk to him, but I'll just breathe in through my nose and breathe out through my mouth and try to lower my heart rate again, get my breath back, and get ready for the next set because I know what's coming. And he sits there in tatters, heavy breathing through the mouth, moaning and complaining at me about what I'm doing to him. So it's just, yeah, taking that time immediately after the exercise just to concentrate on your breathing and bring yourself back down and prepare yourself for the next round of what's coming is really, really helpful.
I think, and this great segue there is about the rest aspect. Lowering that breathing, but also resting is such an important area. And I said there about, there's this almost societal judgment. Oh, you'll feel better if you go and do an exercise, if you go and do that. I'm actually going to question that. Listen to your intuition.
Mhm.
You know your body the best. And if you don't feel well or feel like doing it, maybe replacing it or just sit for half an hour in that space and breathe.
Mm. That's good. I would challenge that just to add a bit of devil's advocacy here. So you take me many years back. I got really, really fat and out of shape, and I was in terrible condition. I never felt like exercising in that state. Like, if I was to pay attention to how my body felt, I would be on the couch because you almost your body becomes accustomed to your lifestyle, and you'll be sat there, and your body won't be screaming, "Take me out to exercise," not in ways that you would understand anyway. So there is that. There is an element of recognizing where you are and the starting point that you're at, and understanding that for someone who trains regularly and looks after themselves, they'll have those times where the body's maybe saying to them, listen, today's not a good day. You need to just take it easy. But for people who, generally speaking, don't invest into their physical health as often as they should, there's an argument there to be made for you shouldn't be listening to that voice. You should be instilling some discipline and getting some work done.
I think that that's a great point because I would actually take that further and go the benefits of having an accountability partner. Now, that might not be your loved one. You mentioned there about, the chef in your gym came and worked, trained with you. Having an accountability partner can be a really great way for shifting your mindset.
Yes.
And on those days where you don't feel like it, it could be bucketing with rain, it could be freezing cold. But if you get a text message from your mate going the night before going, see you at 6 o'clock, look forward to it.
Mm.
You've already changed that brain going, I'm getting up, I'm doing it, regardless.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's been quite a nice dynamic. And I'm on the other side of it from the perspective of I generally train alone, and I'm quite good like that. I don't. I'll take a few steps back and explain my mindset a little bit because I'm sure there'll be people in the audience that will relate to this and it'll make sense to them. I don't like working with coaches one-on-one. I like to learn how to do things myself. And it's why I chose to author a book on nutritional lifestyle change, because I recognize that there are people out there like me who like to learn and take in information and then figure out their own path rather than being given a path to follow. And so my training, I tend to train on my own. I'll have my earphones in, I'll have the heavy metal blaring because that's my preferred music. And I've got a little app where I track the routine I want to do and my progress, the amount of reps, the weight, whatever. And I'll train. And I'm very disciplined in that. And I'll train as much as I can, sort of 3 to 4 days a week, depending on what my work schedule looks like. But for my mate, he doesn't train and he needs that accountability. And being able to pair up with me and me sort of stepping out of my comfort zone and going, yeah, okay, I'll move away from training on my own. Let's coordinate schedules. And we did this. We sat and we looked at my schedule, days and times that I usually work out, and then which days and times that match for him. And on those days, we've agreed he'll come and train with me. And so every week we just check the schedule again, identify the days we're going to work together and make that commitment to each other. And he'll come over and he'll train. We did that yesterday. And it's been so good for him because he needs that accountability. He needs someone to sort of motivate him, grab him by the hand and take him along. And over the long run, that'll change as the habit becomes a discipline for him. He'll then be able to do it himself. But that initial step, I think that accountability partner for someone who's just starting out is a really good step to take.
I couldn't agree with you more there, Ricky. And I think that the other bit which I'm hearing, which is so vital, is personalizing it to what works.
Yes.
Right? Because there's so much pressure. And it's funny, we're recording this at the beginning of a year where the New Year resolutions, gym memberships have gone through the roof because people want to do it in January or whatever. But that might not be right for that individual. And it's finding out what works for you and what works. There are core elements that need to be non-negotiables. Like, for example, you go to the gym, I go either running or yoga. We wear shorts and a t-shirt when we do it. We're not going to do it without any clothes on. There's a non-negotiable, right? And it is quite funny. So, for example, last night, I got my running gear out the night before.
Okay. Yeah.
Just all prepared. So I knew intuitively, I'm getting up, I'm doing this. Also, the other key thing, which I think is vital, and so many people do this, and it has a massive impact on their health. Get up first thing in the morning. I would say about 80% of people do? Pick up the phone, start looking at messages on their phone.
Yeah.
Forget your phone. Do your exercise first. Try and stay away. And if you're in a partnership with someone, this is something I've been doing with some people, almost like a swear box, if that makes sense. Having a jar and putting in your £5 or your $5 is a penalty if you pick up your phone within the first half an hour of being awake.
Okay. Yeah. That could be quite a challenge for some.
Again, if you're in a partnership and if you're in that situation where you have an accountability partner and they're doing it and they say, oh, I checked this, then they buy the coffee that morning.
Okay. Yeah.
So you can have a bit of fun with it, but it's more than that. It's actually engaging with human contact, which is something that is so critical for one's health.
Yes. It's good that you mentioned the sort of morning routine there. Something that I learned from Dr. Andrew Huberman through his podcast a while ago is to avoid caffeine first thing as I wake up. Because I hadn't appreciated, and I'll paraphrase at a very high level because I've obviously don't have nearly the grasp that Dr. Huberman has, but it's to do with adenosine and the way adenosine drains out. So adenosine is your sleep hormone, as it were, your tiredness hormone. And when you get up first thing in the morning, the adenosine needs to bind to certain receptors. I forget the name of the receptor, and the system drains it out or lowers the amount because it binds to the receptor and it goes off and does its thing. But caffeine and adenosine compete for the same receptors. So when you're getting up first thing in the morning, you're smashing some caffeine, coffee, Red Bull, whatever it may be, you're then sort of suppressing the drain of the adenosine, and it hangs around unable to do what it needs to do because the caffeine is bound to the receptors. And then you get to the sort of early part of the afternoon and the caffeine has started to wear off and disappear. And you suddenly got this big rush of adenosine that should have been drained in the morning but didn't have a chance to. And then you get smashed by that like all-consuming tiredness in the early afternoon, and you have that real dip in energy. Whereas if you delay your caffeine intake for the first, I think Dr. Huberman says 90 minutes, you delay that caffeine intake, you allow the adenosine to drain, and then have your caffeine, and you don't get that afternoon dip in alertness and wakefulness. You tend to have a stable energy level all the way through, and it's been quite a change for me. I've enjoyed that.
Well, thanks for sharing that, because that's something I didn't know as technically as what Huberman explains. I actually take that a little bit more rudimentary, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Coffee depletes you of magnesium.
Okay, yeah.
If you're depleted of magnesium, what happens? The receptors in your gut to your brain, your anxiety levels start increasing.
Yes.
So if you're getting that coffee fix at 6 a.m, now bearing in mind, I'm talking about those who operate almost a 9 to 5 mentality, if that makes sense, right? Shift working, different conversation.
Yeah.
But if you're taking a cup of coffee first thing in the morning, you've lost magnesium and other minerals as we're sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're going to drain them even more with coffee.
Yeah.
What's your receptors in your brain going to be like over time of that day? You're going to have that high anxiety creeping in.
Yeah.
Therefore, you will want those sugar hits. You want those quick fixes, whether it be carbohydrates, high energy drinks to prevent those slumps from happening. Or you actually go to the coffee again and start taking 4 or 5 coffees a day. The other key aspect to notice here, there is brilliant evidence here to suggest and correlate that a high coffee intake also relates to a high alcohol intake.
That's actually an interesting connection there. I haven't heard of that one before.
So when you think about it, particularly in a corporate environment where, drinks on a Tuesday night just because it's Tuesday, right, for example, or the Thursday night pizza and beers powwow for an hour. Then one beer leads to another, etc. You're consuming alcohol, then the first fluid that you're putting in is coffee. So alcohol depletes you of magnesium. Coffee depletes you of magnesium. What's your mental state going to be like?
Not very good.
So you look at this and you go, let's take a step back. And you mentioned a brilliant area there about energy. One of the aspects where I think that Huberman is brilliant, and there are some brilliant podcasts out there. They talk about mitochondria, but let's break that down into energy levels, right? If you're not protecting your own energy, your energy of your cells, how are you going to perform properly?
Yeah.
Right. So there we go. We're depleting ourselves of magnesium. And then we think, oh crap, I've only had 5 hours sleep last night. Another depletion of magnesium. Then we'll have a shower and we'll wash ourselves in toxins and we'll put deodorant on, depleting ourselves of minerals because there's high aluminium in them. Within 20 minutes of putting on a roll-on deodorant, for example, it's in your bloodstream. Where's the detoxification pathway? On your liver.
Yes.
You've had alcohol the night before and coffee, and then you're adding toxins onto it and you're wondering, why am I feeling crap and why am I performing poorly?
So this a good segue off of this and something I think is very, very worth covering. So you've mentioned that you're in your early 50s, right? Let's dispel some of the common myths that people associate as, oh, that's just aging. But as a man in your early 50s, what are the things you would say people commonly misunderstand as just a symptom of aging, which is actually, in reality, a symptom of failing metabolic health?
Oh, brilliant question. And I have to reference an amazing Australian who I've got a lot of time for and privileged to meet several times and work with over many years, Dr. James Mukie. James is an eye surgeon.
Okay.
One of the myths we in Western society go, I'm just at that age, I need glasses,
Mm-hmm.
right? Let me put it out there. Why do you think that when you go and see a medical practitioner, they'll look at you, the health of your eyes? Your eyes reflect the health of your liver.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? We have this stupidity, in my opinion, around I need glasses when I hit 40, and you're hitting that age at the moment. I'm hitting 40. My eyes are fading. No, the pathway that you have created through abusing your body is actually closing that pathway of sight.
That's an interesting connection. Yeah.
So, poor eyesight is called one of the contributing factors of poor eyesight is being pre-diabetic.
Yeah.
Now I'm talking about pre-diabetic. You haven't been diagnosed. We're blokes. We might not even go to the medical practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to caveat here: medical practitioners mean from naturopaths to general practitioners of medicine.
Yes.
There's a whole array. So choose the person or people that you feel will give you the best advice.
Yes.
Medical practitioners, general medical practitioners are not trained in prevention or performance of your health.
Mm-hmm.
But your eyes, for example, how would you feel waking up at 45, not being able to see yourself, your partner, or your
Mm.
kids?
So I'm a recovering alcoholic. I stopped drinking in September 2023, second time in my life that I've stopped drinking because I recognize that I have a problem, a very, very poor relationship with alcohol. I just enjoy getting drunk too much. But I can cast my mind back to, we're probably talking 2007, 2008. I was in the UK at the time, and I had gone back to South Africa for a short holiday, and I had partied hard, really hard, for 2 to 3 weeks. Every single night, myself and my mates are out hitting it hard. And towards the end of that holiday, I remember standing on the balcony of what was my parents' house. Beautiful ocean views overlooking my favorite surf spots. And I grew up surfing, so that's something I acutely appreciate. But I couldn't see it properly. It was blurry. And I remember thinking to myself, like, oh, go wash my eyes. So why can't I see? I know what that should look like. I know the crispness with which I should see it, but my eyes weren't functioning. And I wouldn't have articulated it at the time. I wouldn't have put it down to the partying. I just thought like, well, my eyes are a bit weird today. But that makes a lot of sense. Like I would have abused the hell out of my liver for 2 to 3 weeks solid there and felt the consequences in my eyesight starting to go.
Well, it's you know, the eyesight is so critical. And we mentioned earlier around looking at the phone. Well, there's a blue light that's affected our eyes. Our eyes, when we think about it, look at the size of our eyes, but look at the function of them, right? We wake up, we switch on the light, it's artificial light. We pick up the phone, artificial light.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what the majority of people do? Sit and look at a computer,
Yep.
artificial light again.
Yeah.
That all has a massive impact on what one would regard as a very small aspect of our eyes.
Mm.
And I also want to break another myth here, but regarding eyes. I lived in Australia for 20 odd years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Australian climate, but like your climate in South Africa, all year round, pretty damn good, right? Outdoor lifestyle.
Yeah.
What's one of the things that you would put on your eyes?
Oh, everyone runs around with sunglasses on.
Sunglasses.
Mm.
There's a massive myth, but what a market people have created by have to have this brand name sunglasses.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm an Oakley snob.
Right. Oh, they're £300, but they look good. Yes, but what that is doing is telling your brain it's time for sleep.
They're completely interfering with your circadian biology.
So that aspect is a key one. The other key one is, this beer, for example, you and I lived in a climate where barbecuing, brilliant. It's a brilliant concept, but you'll have a beer while you're making something on the barbecue, or a glass of Prosecco will be floating around. Oh, it's just one, it's just two. Again, that accumulates.
Mm.
And I don't know about you, but the amount of people I've seen, well, men in particular with the man boobs, sign of metabolic dysfunction, those drinking beer don't realize the impact that beer has on your metabolic health.
Well, let's just be a little bit more brutally honest there, because it's not just the man boobs. The typical dad bod, right? The typical dad bod is a direct consequence of failing metabolic health. And it's a direct sign that something is off in the lifestyle and you need to be doing something to fix it. It's not something that should be normalized and accepted. Like, we don't want to shame people and berate them for having fallen into the trappings of modern day life, because we all face that same issue. And it's harder and harder to prioritize metabolic health in modern lifestyle. You really have to go out of your way to dedicate effort towards it. Where if we cast our minds 100, 200, 300 years back, people had to physically work hard just as part of everyday life, as part of everyday surviving. We don't have that in a modern society. Has become so convenience focused that we've outsourced almost all physical effort, and this is the consequence of it.
Hey everyone, I hope that you are enjoying the discussion so far. I apologize for interrupting the episode, but I just want to take a moment to talk to you about the work that I do with Zinzino. Zinzino are a brilliant Scandinavian biotech and life sciences firm. Their concept of test-based personalized nutrition is absolutely revolutionary, and they are the pioneers of test-based personalized nutrition. I use their products and solutions myself and my family. In fact, we use multiple of their products. And Zinzino has been instrumental in helping me identify that I was omega-3 deficient, horrendously so, and to get my omega-3 deficiency resolved. You see, their at-home tests give you the data and insights needed to inform your dietary strategy to see whether you have any key essential nutrient deficiencies or imbalances that need addressing. And where you do, they have targeted supplementation stacks that are personalized to you according to your age, sex, and body weight, which means they are most effective to get you back to optimal. This isn't about just avoiding deficiency. This is about getting you back to optimal, and that's a complete and utter game changer. So if you would like to know more, I have linked a short survey in the episode description. Complete the survey. It asks you some simple questions about your health goals and desires. It takes less than a minute to complete, and what I'll give you off the back of that is a personalized product recommendation out of Zinzino solution catalog, telling you which I think best suit your desires and needs and why. I'll then also personally reach out to you to see if there's any questions or queries that I can answer. Let me take the guesswork out of your health journey.
I'm going to agree with you, but also disagree here a little bit,
Okay.
Ricky, because one of the key things that I've had pushback, I'm quite tall. I'm 6 foot, 180 meters, but I'm also quite thin. You can be a toffee, tall outside, fat inside.
Yes.
Now, there is a lot of pushback, and I would say that this is more in the male gender. Oh, but I'm physically fit. I can eat anything.
Yep.
Right? So you might not have the signs, but the 3 vital organs in your gut, your liver, pancreas, and kidneys, are shot.
Yeah. But how would you know?
You wouldn't know. But you would be in denial, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sluggish performance, sleepy, marks under your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
You could have, it can show in your skin, inflammation, you're sick a lot. And again, and it's a great link to the name of your podcast, you're eating the wrong type of foods.
So what are the right type of foods?
So I'm not a huge fan of right and wrong. And again, another myth can I just put out there just as it's come to me. And it's funny, you're in England, I'm in Scotland now as we record this. The get out of jail card that people talk about, the Mediterranean diet.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a question I have for your listeners. Google the Mediterranean geographic area.
Mm-hmm.
There are, depending on which map you look at, over 30 different countries that touch the Mediterranean Sea, for example.
Mm-hmm.
They all have different climates, they all have different soils, they all have different cultures. The Mediterranean diet, and I remember being at many, many medical conferences in Australia and in the UK, and we used to play Mediterranean diet bullshit. So when a presenter would talk about follow the Mediterranean diet or follow the rainbow, we would have bullshit bingo happening.
Brilliant. I love that.
Right. So what I think is the optimal way of performing on a daily basis is a low carb lifestyle or ketogenic. The words are interchangeable. If you want to go down a carnivore or paleo lifestyle, that also is extremely beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
But low carb, there is a reason why, even if you cast your brain back 30, 40 years before the standard American, standard Australian, or the Eat Well, Die Young guides here in the UK came about,
Mm-hmm.
there's efficacy for seasonal vegetables that can be quite good for you. However, they've been overpopulated the way that they've been growing. If you're lucky enough to have a yard that you can grow some of your own vegetables,
Mm-hmm.
grow them with love, and teach your kids how to grow them.
Okay. Yeah.
I remember I've got 2 daughters who are now in their teens, and I remember my younger one. We grew carrots, and she loved pulling them out and just eating them right away.
Nice. Yeah.
Right? Brilliant. The joy that she had in doing that. While my older daughter, the joy she had of sunflowers, not that she ate sunflowers, but seeing sunflowers, for example, different. But you've got to be eating, and I'm a huge advocate of this, you have to be eating animal products daily, unless you're fasting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Now, animal protein, whether it be from an animal on land or at sea, are critical as your gateway of good nutritional well-being on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually, I did a good bit in my book, hoping to have my book published in a couple of months from now. But I wrestled with a similar question to what you've touched on there. So I'm someone who went from standard Western diet into ketogenic diet and discovered this whole world of low carb nutrition, and have sat there looking at there's many different camps, many different tribes within the space. I went full carnivore in June of 2022, and for the most part, that's where I found my happy place. Like, I feel fantastic on a carnivore diet. I will stray from it every now and then, but for the most part, a carnivore diet, meaning I eat basically only animal products and very little plant products, is where I feel my best. But for my book, I had to wrestle with why we have so many tribes and so many people clearly, undeniably thriving within those tribes. And the reason I wanted to wrestle with that question and try and address it was because within the online spaces associated to each little tribe, the infighting against the other little tribes is spectacular to watch. You'd think that it would just be the animal-based people versus the plant-based people, and there is that, but the infighting amongst the different tribes of animal-based eating is absolutely mental. Like the carnivore people are convinced keto people are poisoning themselves, and the lion diet people sit atop the food chain and think of themselves as the grandmasters of it. Like it's mental to watch the infighting that goes on in the online space with each little tribe. And so what I've tried to do is break it back down to basic human physiology and get away from the ideologies which underpin all the tribal views and the mindsets that go along with that, and look at our physiology and say, right, according to us, our digestive system and function, what should we eat? And I learned a lot on the work of Dr. Mickey Ben-Dor and his team out at Tel Aviv. And the best we can tell, if we were to assign a trophic level to humans based solely on the function of our digestive function, how our digestive system works, the enzymes that we have, where the digestion happens, where we get our nutrients from within that space, we are hypercarnivores. And so what that means is we are designed to get the vast majority, about 70% of our nutrition from animal sources, but we also have the digestive flexibility to include some plants and some fungi. And that was a survival mechanism which lends itself well to your point about seasonality of the foods. And it was to say, well, when we don't have sufficient of our optimal food group available, we can also lean on the others. Tonight, where we sit in modern day, and then the point I've taken in the book is to say, we don't face the same challenges that our ancestors did. For the most part, the overwhelming majority of us have overabundance so far as food is concerned. Like we are so spoiled with choice. We can have whatever we want, whenever we want, basically. So a good way to structure your nutritional approach is to say, okay, well, I am going to center my nutritional choices around animal-based foods, and I'm going to augment it in terms of flavor, in terms of getting a little bit of variety. I'm going to augment it with some plants and some fungi based on what I tolerate well. And personal epigenetics will come into that, and you'll have some people, for example, I love avocados. I know of people who don't enjoy avocados and don't do well on avocados. They eat avocado and they don't feel good. So for them, they should probably steer clear of avocado. There's something there that isn't agreeing with them. But you've got to have a little play around and find where you are. So yeah, predominantly animal-based stuff, augmented with a bit of plants and fungi. And that is I would frame that as the hypercarnivore approach, into which, if you think of that as like an over-encompassing umbrella, under which all of the individual little tribes happen to find themselves, and why there are people thriving, quite obviously thriving within each.
Well, it's funny, actually, just listening to that, there's two areas which are coming to me as we're talking. And they're from a religious point of view, and hopefully I don't offend anyone here because it's a compliment. What is known as the Jewish penicillin, chicken soup.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Good chicken soup is one of the key things. If you're feeling blue or you're feeling under the weather, good homemade chicken soup, fantastic. And the other key one, and I was brought up this way, I was brought up quite a strict Catholic. We had fish on a Friday.
Okay, yeah.
Right? And I'm a big aspect, and it's part of the advocacy I coach on, is the Breaston protocol, which takes a little thing called SMASH to improve your omega-3. And SMASH is sardines, mackerel, anchovies, salmon, and herring.
Okay.
So if you want to go and smash yourself with good seafood, that's 5 options for you.
Mm.
But I love your question around myth, and just listening to you. Can I just dispel, from a personal point of view and from a real evidence-based point of view, the myth around red meat and cancer?
Yes. Please do.
Now, for your listeners, I was diagnosed in 2012 with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a blood cancer. That meant that it was throughout my whole body, and stage 4 is extremely ill. There is no stage 5. Stage 5, you're no longer on this planet.
Yeah.
Now, the literature in Western society around red meat and cancer is complete, dare I say it, bullshit.
Yes.
Right? There is one paper which the cancer charities in particular, and lots of medical practitioners will advocate around a research paper that involved 2 rats and colon cancer. And they put their hand on their heart and say red meat gives you cancer. That's it. One paper, 2 rats.
Yep.
I don't give a rat's, excuse the pun here, around that paper. There are plenty of other papers. So my advocacy, if you want to research the rabbit hole around red meat and cancer, look at people like Zoe Harcombe, Gary Fekke, Paul Mason. There's 3 extremely knowledgeable people. And I'll chuck in my other Scottish mate, Dr. Malcolm Kendrick, who touches upon it in his work, but he's more around red meat and cholesterol, which is another rabbit hole we could go down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's stick to the red meat and cancer area. From a personal point of view, when I was diagnosed, I went to see nutritionists and dietitians. They couldn't care less about the medication I was on. I went through 2.5 years of chemotherapy. And I was really interested, what's this chemotherapy doing to my body? They didn't care. Follow the standard Australian diet, which is very similar to the standard American diet and very similar to that in the UK. High carbs, have breakfast cereal in the morning, eat 10 vegetables a day. And I exploded. I was putting on a lot of weight because I was on steroids at the time as well. And for those who are unaware, steroids have a propensity to put on weight because you retain water and fluids in your body.
Yeah.
So I was on these and I'm putting on weight. And then I started going, again, similar to you, by elimination, but also my gut intuition. So I'm trained, don't know if I shared this with you, I trained, my first degree is in hotel management with nutrition. And I trained as a chef, right?
Nice.
Part of it. So I was always protein first. And I'm going, get back into this intuitiveness. Protein is critical. So I started eliminating things. And, you know, what I would make things, and then I would feel like crap. So I used to make things like paella. Throw your vegetables in, your seafood, some chicken, rice, thinking that was healthy. And I would
There'd be a lot of listeners who listen to you say paella and describe the ingredients that you've used there, and they think healthy.
I'm so full, I'm so bloated, and I'll be honest, it gives you gas, you're farting all night, right? And to your point there, it's very easy when you're in that recovery or healing space and you're a bit unsure. And when I was going through chemotherapy, my red wine consumption was also through the roof, right? My hematologist said to me, Martin, the night before chemotherapy, have a glass of 2 of red wine and make it Pinot Noir because it's got more antioxidants in it than any other red wine because of the resveratrol involved in the red wine process. But my accountant, I tried to put my wine bill through as a medical expense on my tax return in Australia, but my accountant told me to get lost or maybe stronger words.
Oh.
Alcohol, we spoke about coffee and alcohol depleting you of magnesium. Yeah. Alcohol and chemotherapy, no go. So let's dispel some of the myths here. Chemotherapy, alcohol don't like each other. Chemotherapy and sugar don't like each other. Alcohol is quintessentially sugar.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's going to deplete you and also put you on that high anxiety level. Now, when I went through chemotherapy, I'm lying in the chemotherapy ward. I'm getting pumped with toxins. I would be in there anything up to about 9 or 10 hours at a time. And what would they feed me? White bread sandwiches, Tetra packs, so the cartons of orange juice or apple juice, a muffin in the morning, chocolate biscuits in the afternoon.
Now you take that, and I know you've had him on your podcast, but you take the work of Professor Thomas Seyfried and his explanation into the metabolic function of cancer cells and what they use for fuel. And you look at what they're feeding you while you're in there being treated for cancer. And I struggle to figure out how those two align.
So apart from this podcast and obviously my podcast, there are some brilliant people doing some great work. So if you are interested in looking at different avenues around cancer, chemotherapy, and if you've been diagnosed with cancer, highly recommend the work of Nasha Winters, right? And based in the US. One of the downsides is very US based. So if you're not in the US, it's quite challenging. Or there are some great people. Takes a little bit of digging, but if you are interested, I've walked in the shoes of cancer patients. I am one. So in the medical world, I am living with cancer. In this framework that I've done, and I have to honestly say, without the help of other medical practitioners, so I've seen maybe a dozen psychologists over the years to help me through this journey. I'm thankful of cancer that has led me down this pathway.
Yeah.
Right? Does cancer come into my thought process every day? No. Does healthy living come into my process every day? Yes.
Yeah.
And if I knew then what I know now, would it have been different? No, I'm thankful of that journey too. But red meat is critical. If you're going through cancer journey and say you've decided that you want to go down the chemotherapy pathway, well, I would first of all add a flag here. Look at naturopath pathway of vitamin C before chemotherapy.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? That's critical. So high dose, believe it or not, there's brilliant work. Look at Dr. Eric Berg's work here around high dosage of vitamin C, and we're talking intravenous here. So it's under medical supervision rather than chemotherapy. So for those who are unaware, chemotherapy really is the origins of chemotherapy come from mustard gas and depletes your immune system, your central nervous system. You die of the response your body's had of chemotherapy. You don't die of cancer.
Yeah. I think that people don't appreciate that.
So I'd be looking at a high dose of vitamin C. The other key thing, if you have decided that you want to go down the pathway, now remember, it's your autonomy to make those decisions. If you want to go down that pathway of chemotherapy, please do some intermittent fasting when you're getting any type of infusions. And that also goes with vitamin C. That allows your body to be in a state of receiving, not of anxiety. But please work with people who can help you there.
Yeah.
That's another big call that I would have. Red meat gives you those amino acids as building blocks to make you healthy.
Absolutely. And red meat is also packed, and I think generally people don't appreciate this. It's certainly not in the public domain. It's not common knowledge. It's not commonly shared. But red meat's actually packed with micronutrients. It's one of the most nutrient-dense foods available to us. And people think red meat is just protein. It comes along with all the vitamins and minerals that you need as well.
Hugely. And it's something I've been working with some people around. When we talk about red meat, there's such a wide range of red meat. And we put barriers up to consuming some of them. I'll give you an example. We have this mental block if we think about organ meat. liver, kidney, heart even. Well, here's a suggestion that you can have. Become friendly with your local butcher and go in and talk to them saying that you want to create your own mince of, say, 80% good beef fat and 20% liver.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll grind them together and you'll make, say, 3 kilograms, which is about about 5 pounds. That could do several meals. You can freeze some of it, portion it.
Mm.
You can make your own burgers. It's also a great way, going to the point of your podcast, Animal Based Dad. As a dad, we can feed this to our kids.
Yes.
And they're getting the beautiful aspect of liver put into their burgers.
Yeah. Well, you could get your butcher to make you up a custom sausage and put a little bit of organ meat in there as well. It's a good way to get it in.
So it's not difficult. We just make it difficult for ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. And the other key area around liver, for example, I remember doing this with Anthony Chaffee. We make liver gummies.
Okay.
So as we are going through seasonal change, in order to give yourself a really good boost for your immune system, again, go to the local butcher, or if you don't have a good butcher that you trust, go to the supermarket, and if you can get liver, get it raw, good quality salt on it, cut it into like 1 centimeter cubes, like ice cubes.
Mm-hmm.
You can have it in the fridge for about 4 or 5 days, and taking 4 or 5 of them raw every day for 4 or 5 days gives your body an immense boost. And I'm going to have a call out here for the female gender. During your menstrual cycle, use these gummies to help replace your body for good organ meat into your body.
That's an awesome insight. Thank you, Martin. It was good. That is good. I know that you are currently working on a book. Is that something you would like to talk about?
Yeah, so thanks for that. Like you, I have created a book and I do have a publishing deal at the moment, but there's something in me just going, right, okay, how do we get this from there to the open? And it's a little bit of a different book. It's a mini pocket book.
Mm-hmm.
So I realize that there's a little bit of a gap in the market. You walk into a bookstore or you go onto Amazon and there are great books, but they're 200-300 pages in length. And the authors have put in a shitload of work.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But you buy it and you go, oh, it's too hard. Don't know where to start. So I've created this little mini book called Metabolic Wellbeing Without the BS. It starts with you.
Okay. Yeah.
And you could read it within about 20 minutes. So on the train journey or the plane journey or, on your lunch break. And it covers 5 key aspects, 4 principles and 1 connector. The principles of why we eat, so nutrition, movement, sleep, self-love, and the connector that holds it all together is called remembering your ABC. Always be curious.
Okay. I like that. Yeah.
Challenge things that you have been said, because we can all be wrong, right? I know my surname is not Google, right? So what I'm saying today, I could be wrong in 5 years' time. In fact, I have been wrong so many times. But again, where I'm adamant that I am down the right pathway is around the nutritional training that I've had. Now, let me put something out there. I am a clinically certified nutritionist. So I have that backing as well, right? I have that piece of paper that says that you've done all these hours in clinical advocacy. I've had over 10,000 hours of research and guidance given on this.
Yes.
I feel so passionate that you have to be eating animal-based products every single day.
Yeah.
Unless you're fasting, right? So fasting is a whole different podcast. And it's funny, several years ago, I was co-hosting a brilliant debate between carnivores and vegans.
That must have been good.
Now, I'm going to hold my opinion about vegans, but I also hold, a bad pun here, an olive branch out to them. You have your efficacy. I disagree with it, but let's put the olive branch out there and connect over teaching people the impact of ultra processed foods, teaching people to reduce sugar, seed oils, and eating real food.
Yeah. Yeah, that is good. I actually, in my various debates with vegans, because it happens from time to time in the landscape of social media, I always make a point of pointing out that the carnivore or the animal-based community and the vegan community have a lot of common ground that they don't want to, or seem not to want to explore. And what I mean by that is, if you look at vegans, generally speaking, the ethical motivation and the animal rights ideology which underpins that, they want to see animals looked after, animals allowed to live their best life, not be mistreated, not be abused. Carnivores and animal-based eaters tend to want the exact same thing because we want the highest possible quality of nutrition. So without realizing it, we both advocate for animals outdoors where they should be, not pumped full of antibiotics and not pumped full of an inappropriate diet, not abused in factory farm situations. And I think that if the two camps could align on that, we'll always disagree on the end outcome because we want to eat the animals. That's our appropriate food source. They don't want us to eat the animals. So there'll always be that misalignment. But if we could move away from the extremes and group around that common ground in the middle, which is we want the animals to be looked after and to live their best possible lives, collectively, you could do a tremendous amount of good with the amount of customer demand change that we could enforce on the market, demanding regenerative agriculture based or approach to farming versus industrial approach to farming.
I think that that's a really good segue. And I would also advocate to call out somebody else who's done some brilliant work here in the UK. If you're unsure about where to start and the carnivore vegan terminology is too much for you, or you're like, I don't really understand it, go to Dimmocks. Or if it's your birthday, put this on your birthday list that someone could buy you. The book Ultra Processed People.
Yeah, I like it.
Right? Now, I know that you and I have got our agenda to put out our books, but the author of that has done it really, really well and putting years of experience in there. And I was lucky enough to have a conversation with him a few weeks ago. That is a great way for people to start understanding the impact of real nutrition.
Yeah, I agree. It's a tremendous book and really worth the read for someone who's coming at it with fresh eyes and just looking to build an understanding.
Correct. And, there is so much out there. And, again, and I'm going back to your brilliant question about the myths. There are no essential carbohydrates that we need, right? Now, that is a huge myth and a huge rabbit hole that you can go down. And I want to pick up on a point that you said. I'm similar to you in the way that I have my lifestyle, right? I'm 95% carnivore. But if I'm invited to someone's house and they've made a meal, I will eat it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Made from a place of love and respect.
Absolutely.
You've got to remember, and this is one of the things that I feel a lot of people go down this rabbit hole of, you're on this diet. No, it's a lifestyle.
Yes.
I said earlier about listening to your intuition. Listen to your hormones. If something doesn't feel right, but if you've been invited to someone's house, they respect you. Mm-hmm. Eat what you're given. And it goes to your point that you mentioned there. You no longer consume alcohol. That pressure, I would say, particularly as a bloke, or just have one, especially in a work environment. What do you mean you're not drinking? it is changing in pockets, which is terrific, but there is so much stigma around making that choice not to consume alcohol.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. And I used to be one of them. I used to be one of those people who, in my own denial about my struggle with alcohol, I would sneer and sort of look down on people who had made the choice to abstain, thinking, oh, just exercise some willpower. And like, if you only want to have one, then just have one. Knowing full well for me, like, the compulsion that came along once I'd had that one to have it all was enormous. But I had to justify it for myself. I had to internalize and justify it for myself because I wasn't in the headspace ready to admit to myself that this is a very real problem and I need to sort it out. It took some getting to reach that point.
It is, and I think it's a very Western culture where alcohol is prevalent as an area of joy and celebration.
Yeah, I mean, it's a rite of passage. We're not allowed it as kids, and it's something to look forward to as you hit sort of your late teens, 18 or 21, depending on where you are in the world. Where I grew up in South Africa, it was 18. And then it was a rite of passage where it was almost like part and parcel of becoming a man. We were allowed to be around the braai and have a beer. Like, we were doing it from like 15, but that was by the by because
100%. And actually, the other kind of myth I just want to tap onto, which is really prevalent and saddens me hugely here in the UK. I didn't see it as much in Australia, but I'm sure it is getting there. The bit that vaping is better than smoking.
that's actually that is a very good point, Martin, and a very good point because as someone who has struggled with addiction, I will tell you firsthand that vaping, particularly the flavored vapes, that is a hiding to nothing. I used to smoke. I smoked for well over a decade. I stopped smoking. Stopping smoking for me was easy. Stopping alcohol for me was very, very difficult. But through my journey, have come to understand the different drivers or triggers of consumption. And vaping is the amalgamation of your sort of chemical-based driver, your nicotine, which is an addictive substance. And then they're adding hyperpalatability on top of that with the flavor enhancements. You're getting these hyper delicious, absolutely delicious, there's no other word for it, flavors that go along with it. And you're triggering an entirely different pathway in your head, an entirely different chemical cascade of endorphins and dopamine feedback loops that reinforce the behavior. And so young kids who are being told that vaping is a better alternative to tobacco, it's absolutely not. It cannot be because it's so much more addictive.
You know, it's funny, Ricky. It's almost and another part of my career, for example. So I spoke about my, chefing background and hotel catering background. I also have a master's degree in international marketing.
Man of many trades.
This was in the mid-90s. So a lot of my peers are responsible for screwing up what people are buying. But in the mid-90s, what was one of the biggest explosions that happened that is prevalent today? The word diet, prefixing a lot of particularly carbonated drinks.
Yes.
Right? It's Diet Coke. I'll call it out.
Sugar alternative Coke.
Right?
Yeah.
It's diet this. Oh, I'm eating. So diet made this ripple impact from diet to low fat. Now, thanks to people like, my colleagues who have made millions about putting these marketing campaigns together. And I remember doing case studies around them going, this is almost as the next best thing. Diet something, you're changing your mindset. And I would put out there that vaping is diet smoking.
That's good. That's a good angle on that. I like that.
Right? So let's shift the mindset. If you vape, you're a bloody idiot.
Yes, 100%.
Right? There is no health benefits whatsoever. It means that your body is crying out. You're starving your body of something, a nutrient, a mineral, a vitamin.
Yeah.
And it's not thrill seeking, because to your point that you said, you become hypnotized with the addiction of putting something in your mouth, breathing it, imitating. And I remember when I was a kid, in the schoolyard, you would get these lollies or sweeties, what you would call, they were like kid on cigarettes. You would pretend
the little candy cane thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember those.
Now, what did they do on a yearly basis? Again, thanks to marketing people. When the hell were candy canes part of the Christmas celebration?
Given you've made it this far into the episode, I can only assume that human metabolic health is a subject you find fascinating and engaging, and it resonates with you, and that's absolutely awesome, because we're very much alike in that regard. And because of that, I want to take a moment to talk to you about potentially becoming a Zinzino independent partner in the same way that I have. You see, Zinzino have tremendous opportunities available for independent partners, meaning people who decide that they don't just want to be a customer, but instead want to use the concept of test-based personalized nutrition to benefit their own health, to take the guesswork out of their own health journeys in the same way that I have, but then to build that user story, to build that testimony of the difference that that's made in our health journeys, and use that to market Zinzino's product, to market the concept of test-based personalized nutrition in the exact way that I'm busy doing right now, and bring on board other customers and other partners to grow the distribution network. And in doing so, you get handsomely rewarded through their compensation scheme, which is one of the best that I've seen in the industry. So if you'd like to explore setting up a side revenue, whether it be something that you only do a couple hours a week, or something that you put a little bit more effort into and build into a full-fledged career, or anything in between, get in touch and let's have a talk about the opportunity and how this might be the right fit for you, not only to take the guesswork out of your personal health journey, but to also build you additional income streams that help to improve your financial situation and the possibilities for you and your family.
Right, so in the last 20 years, diet, candy canes, sugar, and I see this as, again, being a parent. Call it trick or treat or Halloween. What do they get? Candies. Can they start replacing that with, good food, good protein, different types of eggs? We haven't mentioned the most quintessential best product that you can get, eggs. And in the UK, thanks to politics and virtual signaling in the 80s and 90s saying that eggs were bad for you, I'll give you an anecdotal story. This happened to me the other day. I went to get some shopping in one of my favourite shops, and I'd left my wallet at home. Now I know I'm Scottish, Ricky, but let's not go there, right? I went, oh crap. And it was only a couple of pounds. And the girl behind the counter went, oh, you're the egg man that keeps buying eggs in here. Come back and pay it the next time you're in. Right? Because I buy copious amounts of eggs. And when people say, oh, but I eat 2 or 3 eggs a week, and I'm going, I eat 6 a day.
Yeah.
Right? Eggs are essential. And, if you look at, again, as parents, in particular here as dads, right? We are of this mindset, this myth that we can't cook. We all should be able to boil an egg. If you've got toddlers or little ones, go back to that basic thing and share with them. Boil some eggs up, put them in a cup with good grass-fed butter, some salt, mix it all together. Get them to mix it together as well. Yeah. They will eat it. You eat it as well. They will imitate you eating it. That is a great way forward.
Something I love there. And I just want to take a second to highlight that. Cooking for yourself is one of the most important life skills you can acquire. And it's one of the things I advocate very strongly in my book, is that adults need to take agency and need to learn how to cook for themselves, because in the battle of nutrition and metabolic health that's going on in the world at the moment, and the absolute influx of convenience foods, which are calorie dense but nutrient devoid. You have to be able to cook for yourself and cook from scratch.
It's funny, actually. I would love to do a study on, say, teenagers, giving them £10 or the equivalent, whatever country you're in, and saying, I want you to go out and buy and prepare a meal that is real food. And watch what they do. I want to also just bring a little bit here because of the title of your podcast. And again, this is quite a personal area. I became a parent for the first time when I was in my mid-30s. And we mentioned at the start of this, in order to prepare for this, I went for a run. And running I've been lucky enough to run across various locations across the globe. I've ran several marathons, including Boston a couple of times. So I've been pretty good at it.
Nice.
But I was training in my mid-30s, and my ex-wife was a couple of years older than me. And she's from a gymnastics background and a running background as well. So I would be going out running, a long distance run on a Saturday, and then a 100K bike ride on a Sunday.
Wow. Okay.
Right. So pretty intense. One of the key things here is that you've got to ensure that you have the right mindset, which is the right foods to train properly. But also, if you're going down that fertility pathway, realizing that if you're eating shit foods, it's going to impact the journey of fertility and also the health of that child.
Yes.
Now, we were lucky enough to conceive naturally, and there's hundreds of people who would love to conceive that haven't.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a myth that I have. IVF does not touch much around nutrition.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying if you go down an IVF pathway, you shouldn't continue. What I am saying is take a deep, hard look at what you are eating. And an area that we probably won't be able to discuss is around the stress aspect that your body is going through.
Yeah.
When you eat properly, you lower your anxiety levels because you feel grounded.
Yeah.
Now, that has a massive impact on your whole body and also your ability to deal with stress, which is essential.
Yeah.
You know, dare I say it again, back to your question about myths. I don't know how many people have come to me and said, this is wrong with me, this. How long, when I engage with you, will I feel better? This myth that changing your diet for a week is going to change your whole mindset. You know what? It might. But my question is, you've been eating crap food for 30 years, for example.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take a little bit of time and you're going to fall off the wagon.
Yeah.
So an analogy I give is, again, using the birthing area. A woman tends to carry a child in vitro for 9 months.
Yeah.
Give yourself 9 months to have the change from good diet that will have that impact. And you will start at base level again after 9 months. But if you can give yourself 9 months,
yeah,
that's a bloody good time frame that you're sticking to these lifestyle changes.
Yeah, that's a good point. I personally, my favorite was 12 weeks. And not for complete change, but people like to be able to judge incremental changes, incremental successes. So your minimum time frame, absolute minimum, if you're wanting to give a nutritional lifestyle change a try, your absolute minimum amount of time would be 3 months. Give it 12 weeks and see what incremental changes you're enjoying at that point, and then reassess and carry on. I agree. 9 months is a far better goal, but a lot of people listening to this may hear 9 months and
Yeah,
You get
correct.
scared of
And
that.
I like the 12 months. 12 weeks. There are great milestones that you can achieve within that. The other key bit where a lot of people don't realize, when you start going down this pathway for investing in your health, be also prepared to start investing the fact that you're going to have to buy new clothes.
Yes, that's one that kind of hits you unsuspectingly, because you don't realize how bloody expensive it is to invest in wardrobe because it doesn't fit.
This shirt feels great. I put another dent into the belt. My belt, I need to go and get my favorite belt. I need to get another hole put into it because I've lost weight around my waist. Bloody hell.
Yeah, no,
And now
it does hit your wallet.
these are milestones to celebrate. And you go, God, I'm buying a medium shirt. God, I was buying large.
Yeah.
Right? These are great areas of giving yourself that proverbial pat in the back. And trying not to do everything too quickly. And we haven't discussed around the area of hot and cold immersion or hot and cold showers, etc. They're all great, but start off small. Start off 30 seconds in the shower, a minute in the shower, of a cold shower, that is.
Yeah.
The one call out I would have, if you are doing the cold shower immersion, make sure you hit the back of your neck, your vagus nerve. Then you'll really feel the benefit of it.
Yeah, especially for men like us with no hair on our
Yeah. The following challenged are that and again, I spoke there about having a proverbial swear box. Have a swear box in the bathroom so that you can put in your £5, get it all out, and you feel better. So you breathe better. Generally, the 6th letter of the alphabet, which is 4 letters long, is used within that minute consecutively.
That is good stuff. Martin, we could carry on for hours, sir, and I'm sure that there's a lot more that we'd want to unpack in future episodes. But I think it's a good point for us to end off now. So before we stop, what key takeaway would you give to the audience that they should think about over the coming days after listening to this episode?
Great question, Ricky. I would say that your health starts today. Doesn't start Monday, doesn't start on the weekend. Start looking at the investment you're doing today as your CEO, your chief energy officer of your most valuable asset, your metabolic health.
I love that. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Hey folks, thank you for joining us for today's episode. If you found this discussion useful and informative, please be sure to give the channel a like, and please also subscribe so that you may stay up to date with upcoming episodes and exclusive content as and when they are released. Just a reminder that this podcast is made possible thanks to my work as a Zinzino independent partner and Zinzino's brilliant test-based personalized nutrition concept. If you feel like you would like to know more about Zinzino's product offering, or you are interested in potentially joining me as an independent partner yourself, you will find a survey linked in the episode description. Please feel free to complete this survey. It only takes a minute, and in return I will provide you with a personalized product recommendation, and I will also personally reach out to you to see if there's any questions or queries I can answer. Thanks again, and looking forward to having you back soon.